My favorite part. Good morning, and welcome to all of you. Those of you gathered in this sanctuary, and those of you watching remotely. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Alton on this third Sunday of Advent, right? We're in the third Advent. My name is Reverend Krista Taves. It is my honor and privilege to serve as the minister of this fine congregation. My pronouns are she, her. In this congregation, we are people of many ages, many backgrounds, and many beliefs. We are people of diverse orientations, identifications, family structures, and abilities. Our core values are justice, equity, and compassion. We are working for more justice and more love in our own lives and in the world. If you're visiting, a special welcome to you. I hope that your time with us will be meaningful, that you experience being warmly welcomed, and that we will see you again. Please be sure to sign the guest book before you leave. And if you're visiting online, please let us know that you're here so we can personally welcome you. Just drop an email to firstuuchurchalton@outlook.com. At this time, I invite Joy to play our prelude. Thank you, Joy. A central ritual in the Unitarian Universalist faith is the lighting of our chalice. It symbolizes that we have entered sacred space and are preparing our hearts and minds for the blessing of beloved community that happens whenever we gather. If you're watching online and have a chalice or candle, please light it now as we all join in saying the unison words projected on the screen. We hallow this Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation as you're willing and able. Out of depths unknown, the spark of life ignites, and we are born. We enter a world, a universe not of our making. Our lives unfold in mystery and wonder. Questions abound for which there are no definite answers. And so we gather in community to seek in one another assurance and recognition, compassion and strength. We gather in community to be reminded of what is most ultimate and what is most sacred in this spirit of searching and of reverence. Let us worship together this morning. Our opening hymn is 1067, Mother Earth, Beloved Garden. It's in the Teal hymnal. Please rise as you do. Thank you. Please be seated. Since the beginning, when our faith took root here in the United States in the late 1700s, early 1800s, our faith has become more and more pluralist, that we have drawn an increasing diversity of theologies and beliefs about the sacred and religious traditions into our faith, each of us reclaiming what it is we may have grown up with, holding on to what works, letting go what doesn't, and bringing all of that together in this pluralist religious tradition that grows stronger and stronger as we become more diverse. One of the elements that entered Unitarian Universalism in the 1960s and 70s and through into the 80s was paganism. And the type of paganism that entered our faith was a paganism that was from the European traditions, pre-Christian European traditions that were claimed by people largely white of European ancestry, seeking to find a faith that predated Christianity but was intrinsic to them. And this especially happened amongst women, because women were looking for a pre-Christian faith tradition that was not patriarchally based. And European paganism was not patriarchally based. Sometimes it was matriarchally based, sometimes it was both. And so this tradition came in through the feminist movement. It came in through the peace movement. It came in through the environmentalist movement, where the earth is understood as its own being and every single thing on it, every life form, every blade of grass, the rocks, the wind, the sun, everything courses with the spirit of life. And the core concept of paganism as a sacred moving in and through everything fits in well with our Universalist Unitarian theology, where we hold on to that all things are connected and that we are held by a love beyond our imagining. So we see the spark of the divine not just in every human being, but in all things. We are moving towards one of the sacred days in the European-based pagan tradition, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. Because in the Northern Hemisphere, we are moving towards the darkest day of the year, And at a certain time, it's 3:47 p.m. next week, December 22nd, is when we switch over into winter, and then gradually the days become longer and longer. In paganism, in the ancient times, without the benefit of science and astronomy, people struggled to understand. They wanted to understand the darkening days. And they understood it through the prism of their faith, that the spirit of life courses in all things. And so one of the central rituals in paganism for all the holy days is to call in the 4 directions. And I know that's been done here before, but we call in each of the directions and ask for their blessing. Now, I want to plant a little bit of a different idea to go along with this European-based paganism. Because in the indigenous tradition, there's also a deep reverence for the 4 directions. But the idea of calling in the 4 directions is the ultimate of hubris. Who are we as human beings, thinking that we can call in directions when they're already here? We're already surrounded by them. So today we're going to do our own 4 directions. We're going to call it Acknowledging the 4 Directions. And it is in the reading 446 in our hymnals. We're going to light candles, we're going to sing, and we're going to acknowledge the 4 directions that are already here and with us. And I'm going to ask. And there's a song that I'm going to teach you. Some of you already know this, and we'll use this to sing our song. So I'll sing it once, and then you repeat after me, and then it'll become pretty clear how the song develops through this ritual. Spirit of the air, carry me. Spirit of the air, carry me home. Spirit of the air, carry me home to myself. Spirit of the air, carry me. Spirit of the air, carry me home. Spirit of the air, carry me home to myself. And please join me in reading the first section of 446. Spirit of the east, spirit of air, of morning and springtime, be with us as the sun rises, in times of beginning, times of planting. Inspire us with a fresh breath of courage as we go forth into new adventures. And now we will light the candle of the south. Spirit of the fire, carry me. Spirit of the fire, carry me home. Spirit of the fire, carry me home to myself. Spirit of the fire, carry me. Spirit of the fire, carry me home. Spirit of the fire, carry me home to myself. Please join with me in reading the second stanza of our reading. Spirit of the south, spirit of fire, of noontime and summer, be with us through the heat of the day, and help us to be ever growing. Warm us with strength and energy for the work that awaits us. And now we'll light the candle of the west, the spirit of water. Please join with me. Spirit of the water, carry me. Spirit of the water, carry me home. Spirit of the water, carry me home to myself. Spirit of the water, carry me. Spirit of the water, carry me home. Spirit of the water, carry me home to myself. Please join me in the third stanza of our reading. Spirit of the west, spirit of water, of evening and autumn, be with us as the sun sets, and help us to enjoy a rich harvest. Flow through us with a cooling, healing quietness and bring us peace. Let us light the candle of the earth. Spirit of the earth, carry me. Spirit of the earth, carry me home. Spirit of the earth, carry me home to myself. Spirit of the earth, carry me. Spirit of the earth, carry me home. Spirit of the earth, carry me home to myself. Please join me in the fourth stanza of the reading. Spirit of the north, spirit of earth, of nighttime and winter, be with us in the darkness, in the time of gestation. Ground us in the wisdom of the changing seasons as we celebrate the spiraling journey of our lives. We are a caring community where we share the joys that lift our hearts and the sorrows which bring us pain. As part of our worship service, we take time for the expression of the joys, concerns, or sorrows that we carry with us. There are stones at the back and there's stones here in front. When the music begins, you are invited to come forward as you wish. Take a stone to represent whatever is in your heart or thoughts and place it in the bowl of water, which represents this beloved community. If you have mobility issues, please raise your hand and we will drop a stone for you. If you're watching from home, you're welcome to place a stone in water with us in spirit. Let us begin. May the joys and sorrows represented by these stones be held in the crucible of this beloved community. And may you know that you are not alone. We are always with you in spirit. Our reading this morning is a poem by Mary Oliver, a poet that many of us in Unitarian Universalism love deeply, often because of the rich imageries of nature that she uses. It's called Mysteries, Yes. Truly, we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. How grass can be nourishing in the mouths of lambs. How rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity, while we ourselves dream of rising. How two hands touch, and the bonds will never be broken. How people come from delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. Thus ends the reading. Let us stay seated for our meditative hymn, 55, Dark of Winter. Today's message is about wonder. That sense of wonder we have when something beautiful happens, when it feels like things are aligned in a very special, heartwarming way. At this time of year, we spend an awful lot of time and money and energy trying to create a sense of wonder. Lights, candles, music, presents, holiday baking, chocolate coins wrapped in gold foil, stories of Santa Claus, winter wonderlands, and so much more. So there's something I've really been wanting to share with you for a while now. I thought about sharing it during my interview to come serve you. I thought about it the first time I stood up here as your minister. I thought about it at water communion, but the time never seemed right until now. So here goes. One of the greatest blessings of my life is that I have a mother who has a direct line with Mrs. Claus. Don't laugh, I have proof. My mother knows Mrs. Claus, or how else would I know that Mrs. Claus loves sewing new clothes for dolls? When I was a toddler, my mother made me a doll. We called her Mopsy. She's still around in the doll bed at the top of the stairs in my parents' house, recovering from my childhood. When I was a girl, my mom and I would put Mopsy in a paper bag and leave her on the back porch in early December. And the next morning, she would be gone, picked up by the elves who came in Santa's sleigh. Mopsy would be transported by the reindeer, including by Rudolph, to the North Pole. Now, my mom also liked to sew, and that might have been how she and Mrs. Claus crossed paths. Because every year, my mom sewed me a Christmas dress, which I would wear to the Christmas Eve service and all the family Christmases. We had 4. Imagine that marathon. Well, wouldn't you know, When my brothers and I came down the stairs Christmas morning, there was Mopsy sitting under the tree wearing the exact same dress that my mom made for me. See, I told you I have proof. Clearly, Mrs. Claus and my mother colluded to make this little miracle happen year after year. I was an absolute wonder. Mopsy made that journey at least 10 times. It's no wonder she's still resting at the top of the stairs. But even as I grew older and I came to understand things in a new way, I still put her in that paper bag on the porch, hoping to touch the wonder, even though I knew more about the inner workings of Christmas every year. We are in a season of wonder, a season that celebrates many miracles. The Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, which starts in just a week from now, celebrates the miracle of the temple flame that kept burning for 8 days, even though there was only oil for one, with a lamp lit by a small band of warriors fighting for freedom from a hostile, mighty empire. The shining light foretold their victory and the survival of the Jewish people under constant threat of extinction. Today is the Christian third Advent. In the traditional Christmas, Mary accepts the Spirit of God she believes in and becomes with child. And in the midst of the violence and oppression that many of us can scarcely imagine, a child is born in a stable, visited by shepherds, angels, and wise men who have followed the star that shines above them. Such magical, wondrous stories. How many of us as children literally believed in one of these stories or another religious story central to the faith you were raised in? In my experience, there is a wonder to this simple belief. As a child, I wanted to touch that wonder. I would play Christmas carols and lay in front of our nativity set, staring into the eyes of each character, hoping to feel a spark of that wonder. But it was very difficult when I started to doubt and then unpack this literal belief in the story of the birth of Jesus. Perhaps you've had similar experiences with the stories of your faith of origin. And it wasn't that I wanted to go back to the belief. That wasn't the difficulty, because there was freedom in the changing of my beliefs. But what I missed so much and what hurt my heart was losing the sense of wonder. Because for quite a long time, that sense of wonder was elusive because for me, it had been wrapped up in believing the story. So how do we recreate wonder when our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs shift? That's what I'm curious about. What do we hold on to? What do we let go of? How do we claim wonder in a new way? This morning, I want to tell you a story drawn from our American Unitarian history, when we literally had an in-house theological struggle over the source of wonder. Can you believe it? We did. A struggle that separated our denomination for many decades. It was even battled out on this property during many of the Western Unitarian conferences that started in the 1840s and went through until the early 20th century. It happened in this place. It happened in Quincy. It happened in First Unitarian St. Louis. It was truly a struggle. And it was rooted, believe it or not, in whether you needed to believe the miracles in the Bible in order to be a Christian. Doesn't that sound odd today? We're in such a pluralist faith that this seems like a ridiculous issue, like arguing how many angels can fit on the head of a pin. But stay with me, because it actually has a significant impact on who we are today and where we look for wonder and how we became so pluralist. So in our early years, Unitarianism was a Christian religion, and for many Unitarians around the world, it still is. And in the early 1800s, the first American Unitarians separated themselves from other Christians over questions like, was Jesus God? We said no. Were we born either damned or saved? Unitarians said no. We are born as blank slates full of potential. Unitarians didn't believe God wrote the Bible either. It was written by human beings. And for all these different beliefs, Unitarians were kicked out of the church they belonged to, which is called the Congregationalist Church. So our early ancestors wanted a modern Christianity that merged reason and rationality with their faith. But there was one thing they did not question, and that was the miracles in the Bible. They said that believing in the miracles was a litmus test for whether you were actually a Christian. So William Ellery Channing, one of the founders of American Unitarianism, believed that when humans got it badly wrong, God would break into history and set things right. So the Great Flood, for instance, where Noah and his family go into an ark with all those animals and then set sail for 40 days while the world is flooded. And then when the floods recede, we get a do-over. That was God breaking into history because we had messed things so badly that he saw no option but to destroy almost everything so we could start again. Jesus' birth was the same. Clearly, humanity was getting more and more broken. So God broke into history and brought Jesus, the most perfect person ever, into the world. All of Jesus' miracles, the people he healed, raising Lazarus from the dead, even his resurrection, this was God breaking into history to set things right for us. And if you didn't believe in those miracles, you really didn't believe in God's power. And you can see this in his article. It's called The Evidences of Revealed Religion from 1821. So that's where we were in our earliest years in American Unitarianism. And I keep emphasizing this was American Unitarianism because this issue was not important for Unitarians in other places. This was an American thing. Well, the first people to question the requirement to believe in the miracles were the second generation Unitarians who were rebelling against the first generation Unitarians who were their elders. So no, nothing's changed. There's always a new generation rebelling against the one before it, even at the very beginning of our faith. And this second generation who were rebelling called themselves transcendentalists because they believed that each of us was endowed with a spark of the divine, and there was an oversoul that some called God, and you could directly connect with God through that spark of the divine that was in you. So they believed that you did not need the Bible to connect to God. And transcendentalists like Margaret Fuller believed that there was this spark of God in every person. And if you wanted to find God, you didn't have to look up. You looked in. You looked into your heart. You looked into your mind and your spirit. Does that sound familiar? You look at other humans as also having that spark of the divine. So you found God in yourself, and you found God in your relationships with other people. They also found God in nature. So there was this dualism that is really endemic in Western society, this dualism between the earth and the heavens and the divine, right? So what's on earth is sinful, it's lesser, it's not as important. It's what's in heaven that is so important. And that's this dualism between mind and body and spirit. And they wanted to collapse that dualism. Does that also sound familiar? So they elevated the meaning of nature as being something as holy as God. So get out, they said. If you want to meet God, go out into the world and witness the magnificence, the wonder of everything around us. The dew on a flower in the morning, tender shoots of green in the spring, a gurgling brook, the sunrise. In fact, it is the transcendentalist thinking that created the seeds and the fodder for our pluralist faith tradition today. It created the openness for when, for instance, paganism came into our faith. There was resistance to it, tremendous resistance to bringing ritual back into our faith in a sense of the surreal. But there was room. There had to be room because this is our heritage of inclusivity, and our heritage of seeing the sacred embedded in everything, and that everything is interconnected. So, this horrified the first generation Unitarians. They were absolutely horrified because they had already risked so much. The beliefs that they held, like Jesus is not God, the Bible's written by human beings, we're born blank slates, already had separated themselves from other Christians, and most Christians saw us as heretics. So this whole idea that you didn't need the Bible to approach God, that the Bible was truly, that the miracles could be optional, that was horrifying to them. They're like, we're going to be the laughing stock even more than we already are. We have to hold on to this. And the transcendentalists said, no, we don't have to hold on to the miracles of the Bible to be people of faith. Believe in them if you want. We're not saying don't believe in the miracles. We're just saying you don't have to believe in the miracles. Why force people to set aside their minds? It's harmful. It's like a poison in this new so-called free faith. How can we be free if we have to believe in the miracles? We're no longer a non-creedal faith. So you want miracles? Look inside your heart and find the spark of the divine. See it in the hearts all around you. Go into the natural world. Look up at the stars. Run your hands through the damp forest floor. That is all the wonder you need. So the traditionalist Unitarians did everything they could to shut this down. And in fact, this is one of the sites where the Western Unitarian Conference had happened in this, not in this building, but in the one before it. It was open war. There was so much division around these ideas that some ministers stopped coming and some ministers stopped speaking to each other. It was such a division. And the traditionalist Unitarians who controlled the purses, who controlled the funds, who controlled the magazines and the journals, did everything they could to shut down this threat. And there were so many splits. Churches split, families split, seminaries split, ministers stopped talking to each other, even the regions of the country. So in the West where we are, there was more openness to these transcendentalist ideas. And in the East, there was not. But there were churches here that were more connected to the East than other churches. So for instance, First Unitarian St. Louis, which was Church of the Messiah, they were traditionalists. So they wouldn't hang out with the other Unitarians in the West anymore. And that lasted decades. It lasted decades. There was even a split in the Church of the Messiah, which created the People's Church, the Unity Church. So there were two churches in St. Louis for about 40, 50 years. They split over the question of where do you find wonder? Where do you find the sacred? I don't know where Alton landed on this. I got to find out from Mary Johnson, but I don't know where this church landed. It may have been split as well. Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's differences here. Even though this church was helped to start by the St. Louis Church, I think you kind of made your own path. So it took decades to mend this rift. And it only became possible when humanism entered Unitarianism, because then everyone had something else to fixate on and fight about. And that's when we made peace about the whole transcendentalist thing. Did you have any idea that wonder makes such a difference? We often see wonder as a frill, right? It's great to have, but in the nuts and bolts of the world, on the stock market and housing prices and all that stuff, inflation, what's the place of wonder in all of these things? But I would say that wonder is not simply a frill, because a life without wonder is a life of disconnection and cynicism, and we see where that is getting us. What transcendentalism did for us is expand our understanding of where we find wonder. For traditionalists, wonder came from one place, and that was God up above us, a separate, independent being who you strive to reach, who broke into history to save us from ourselves. But for us now, wonder is everywhere. Our very lives are wondrous. Our relationships are wondrous. The earth and everything on it is wondrous. And this is when the seed was planted in Unitarianism for the entry of paganism as one of the strands of our faith. And it also means that we are well positioned to be a strong force of moral centering as we face our climate crisis that we are in now. Because we have always seen the earth as sacred. So there's another way, one other way that transcendentalism changed our faith. Because they found wonder in reaching deep into the heart of human suffering and seeking justice and compassion in there. So wonder happened not from backing away from suffering, but by moving deep into suffering. Because when you see the spark of the divine in every human being, anything that shudders that spark is an offense to the wonder of life itself. So, for instance, transcendentalists were hungry for the end of slavery because they saw the same spark of the divine in those who were enslaved. And many of them risked absolutely everything to end it. They were in the forefront of the first wave of feminism back in the 1800s, when the work was to get the right to vote, because women had the spark of the divine, the same as men. And even though we make fun of the temperance movement right now, where they banned alcohol as being a bunch of little itty-bitty women trying to control everybody, what they were trying to do was save women, because most men were alcoholics and most women faced domestic violence. So the temperance movement, the prohibition of alcohol, was rooted in a sense of saving and protecting women. It didn't work out that way, but that was the original hope. During the Civil War, transcendentalists mobilized massive humanitarian relief, which led to the Red Cross. So you can see how social justice became embedded in what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. It started with the transcendentalists. A rich experience of unfettered wonder should not be held back from anyone. And you eliminate these barriers to wonder by striving for freedom, justice, and equality for all. So going back to the question we started with, how do we recover wonder when our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs change? Where do we find wonder when we are lost, sad, hopeless, cynical, or in doubt? The answer is, where do we not look? It is everywhere. Wonder surrounds us, even in our darkest moments. I still feel a sense of wonder when I go up the stairs of my parents' home and I see my doll laying in her bed, and I remember how much beauty and wonder that gave me. I think she can rest the rest of her life for what she gave me. So this week, I encourage you to take some time, even if it's just 5 minutes, even if it's just while you're driving to work, because it's the only time no one can ask anything from you. Think about your life now. Look around you now. Where do you find wonder? That mix of joy, admiration, gratitude, and more, connected by that thin strand of love and hope. I'm sure it's not far. May the wonder of this season be with you and yours. Amen and blessed be. Our closing hymn is number 1068 in the Teal hymnal, Rising Green. Please rise and body your spirit. Please be seated. Every week, we generally take an offering for the many ministries of this congregation, the life-saving ministries of this congregation. But today, our offering is a special offering. Once a month, we dedicate our offering to the Minister's Discretionary Fund. And this fund, we keep this fund well-funded because we never want to say no when someone comes to us in need, when someone can't pay the rent or buy groceries or pay the utility bill. And this money is often used for people within this congregation. It is also used for people in our community. So please be generous. Please join with me in blessing this offering. May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice. So this is the time for announcements, and I have two of them. The first is that there will be another coffee hangout with me when I am back in a little over a week. That'll be on Monday, December the 19th at 4 o'clock at the Post Commons, which is accessible. We discovered an accessible entrance last time we were there because there were some folks who weren't coming because they thought they wouldn't be able to get in the building. But no, you can absolutely get in the building. The other announcement I have is that Starting Point, which is a small group experience offering you an experience of Unitarian Universalism, is being offered starting next month in January. More information will be in the newsletter, and please email me to register for that class. And you don't have to be new to Unitarian Universalism to join this class. In fact, it's a lot of fun. We're also merging with Elliott, so you're going to meet people from Elliott and Alton in our sessions. 3 of them are on Zoom. The last one will be here in person, and Jennifer Lewis co-facilitates with me and Amy Stark from Elliott, and it's a really good experience. So it would be lovely to see some of you in that class. Are there any other announcements?
We're going to do the fourth Saturday and the third Saturday because the fourth Saturday is Christmas. I know Paula is looking for donations of warm hats, warm scarves, and warm mittens, and for youth as well as adults. We're going to buy some as well, but if you have access, somebody else can knit, whatever, it's all good. So we're putting that on. We're going to do a cookie exchange on Christmas Eve for a Christmas Eve service. Hopefully you'll come. We'll have instructions once we know how to do it. And don't forget the Kids Fruit Oasis today, the last day. Last day to get a donation to Nancy through Givelify or whatever options to make sure that we are supporting the Oasis family that we're sponsoring, and then of course the Gifts for Ages family and over so I think that can go till next week. Thank you. Christmas Eve service is 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. Yeah. Are there any other announcements before we close our service? All right, our closing words. To love life is to notice the wonders that abound, and to notice the wonders that abound here and now, grounded in the here and now, is the beginning of finding love for this life today. I invite you to join with me in prayer for our chalice extinguishing words. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of this flame until we meet again. Please remain seated for our postlude. Go in peace, and to our potluck, which is waiting for us. Thank you.
Thank you.